And welcome to the show, Our Islam and Community Issues Group. My name is Naeem Sharif, and we have Brother Benjamin Shabazz as our guest today. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Yes, sir. We're going to do part two of a language of Imam Deen Mohammed, and we're going to talk about some of his language that he used. Then we're going to go into some other topics. But before we do, if you would open up with a small prayer for us.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I seek refuge with Allah from the rejected enemy, Satan the devil. With the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Ameen.
Amen. Well, we talked about, a few things, and a lot of things we didn't get to. One of the things we talked about was Imam Deen Mohammed and his language. And as we said that he was the son of one of the sons of Elijah Muhammad. And when we talk about Elijah Muhammad, one of the things we have to, I have to give credit to, I don't know if I would have came to Islam if it wasn't for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And one of the things, because they're back in the 30s. They started in the 30s, Nation of Islam, and then in the 40s, and then the 50s, and then the 60s. And then in about the middle 60s, late 60s, when the Black Power movement started to come in, I think that's what attracted, a lot of people. That what attracted me was, they were talking about do for self, having your own black businesses and things of this nature. So that attracted me, and they were doing something. That was the thing. They were doing something in the community, with whether it was businesses, showing unity, being organized. So you have to give credit where credit's due. So I have to give credit there. And then sometimes the Nation of Islam, as you and I both know, we came out of that. We evolved out of that, and that was through the language of Imam Deen Mohammed. But it did give us a basis, of some things. And just like you were saying that, I think your last thing you said, nobody came to help us. How did you put it?
Yeah, nobody came to help us, so Allah raised up someone.
Someone. So something you said also about, people try to, talk about the Nation of Islam, in a negative way and so forth. But what was the thing that you were saying?
Well, they want to condemn the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
And yet they're doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, who's worse? The person that has the truth and they're doing nothing?
Mm-hmm.
Or the person that think they got the truth and trying to do something?
Trying to do something. Yeah.
But Allah tells us that we're judged by intentions.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So, some of this book that you have, maybe we can just touch on that. And it talks about, well, why don't you just go ahead and talk about that briefly, and then we're going to get into some other stuff.
Okay, well, this book, I came across this book in Chicago. A brother was selling these books back in Chicago at the convention, Brother Cornelius Majid.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, the 5 faces that influenced and established the religion of Islam in the United States of America. The best kept secret of the century.
Mm.
I don't know if you want to get a shot of that. Can you get a close-up of that?
We should have probably warned him. Let him know.
Oh, yeah, here he comes.
There you go.
Here he comes. Yeah, he's coming in good. The 5 faces. All right, thank you, brother. So, what he writes is that the 5 faces were...
So that'd be the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
That's number 1.
And then El Hajj Malik Shabazz, a.k.a. Malcolm X.
All right.
Then Muhammad Ali.
Right.
Then Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Right.
And Imam Deen Mohammed.
Right. So he has pictures, and he goes on to explain certain things. Now, I would say, I'd give the brother credit saying the 5 faces, but we also know when we study, there were other people here trying to establish Islam, like Noble Drew Ali,
Mm-hmm.
There's a few more people
Right.
that were trying to establish Islam and trying to, in their version of it, I would say, and trying to give African American people some sense of dignity about themselves. But during the time when there was a conscious uprising in America, I guess you would call it the Black Power movement, these five faces played a major role.
Right.
Played a major role. Because you had Ron Karenga that came up with Kwanzaa?
Well, yeah, he came up with Kwanzaa, and he also had an organization called US, which stood for United Slaves.
Is that what it stood for?
That's what it stood for.
Whoa.
But don't get me started on Ron Karenga.
I know.
Don't get me started.
You had the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
You had the, what was it, the Simeonese Liberation Party. I mean, you had all these different groups. And their main focus was, no matter how diverse they may have been, their main focus was to give the black man and woman in America some type of dignity.
Right.
Some type of dignity.
Right.
Because we were running around celebrating Christmas, you know what I'm saying? White Santa Claus, white Jesus, celebrating white Easter, Easter egg hunt, looking for rabbit land eggs, but these were our standard holidays. You know, Valentine's Day, you know, with the white angel shooting an arrow at you.
Right.
And so what I'm trying to say is that I'm not trying to criticize these things. In a sense, I'm trying to say this is all we knew. Everything was white-based. And so the conscious level was rising. You know, we didn't know anything about Africa, the leaders in Africa, and the Krumba, Mandela. We didn't know anything about that. So these groups were rising up, trying to get us to see things from a more realistic lens about who we were, because we were told that we were 3/5 of a human being, that God had cursed us because we was Noah's son, and he saw his Noah naked, and all his children were cursed to be slaves of their brothers.
Because they laughed at him.
Yeah.
Now, you know there got to be some symbolic stuff in that, because if you just look at the story on its surface, okay, so Noah, so he was drunk, and so one of the sons laughed at him, so he's going to be cursed for the rest of his life and the generations after that, because he laughed at the one who was supposed to be righteous. So there's more symbolic. We could go into that another time, but there's a lot of symbolism in that. But, you know, if you take it at face value, it don't make no sense that just because you laughed at the man who was supposed to be right, you know, come on, man. But anyway, meanwhile.
Yeah, so we have uprising, revolution of the mind, as James Brown would say, revolution of the mind, you know, moving the mind, turning it around so you can see things from a different perspective. And the Nation of Islam came up. It was there before that, but it took more prominence when the Black Power movement came in.
Right.
So, like you say, a lot of people wouldn't be Muslims today if it wasn't for went through that door.
Right. Right.
And
all that as I look at it, that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought us to the door of Islam, and Imam W. Muhammad opened that door up for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Elijah Muhammad would often say that. He said, I'm not here to teach you the religion, I'm here to clean you up.
Clean you up, yeah.
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 And you think about it, what are we talking about, clean you up? You know, what kind of people were we? You know, what was the order of the day? What's that song, Living for the Weekend?
Right, right.
I mean, fornication and adultery, alcohol consumption, drug consumption, killing in the streets. You know what I'm saying? That was, if you had a job, you couldn't wait for the weekend to go into your zoo mode. You know, it's just, and so this was kind of like the popular culture. And Elijah Muhammad came on and said, no, you gotta straighten yourself up, brother. And we learned how to respect other brothers in authority over us, you know. You don't listen to another brother, man. I mean, I'm using the word brother, but listen to another.
You know what?
You know what? You know, tell me nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was great discipline. It was great discipline. And you know, I was a military man, right? When I came out the military and I came in the nation, you know, they were using military standards. The drilling, you know.
Yeah. The reason why I'm laughing because when we were in the nation and we'd have our classes, FOI class, Fruit of Islam, and so then they were, you know, the general orders or whatever, take charge of this post and all timber property in view. Well, yeah. Then I found out that they were the military thing. I said, oh man. I said, you know, it was, you know, it was good, but it was like, I thought it was just unique.
Original.
Yeah, I thought it was original. Yeah. I said, oh man. I said, the Army, the military, you said? I said, oh man.
Yeah, man.
But, you know, Farad, Elijah Muhammad, they used what they had to use to try to, you know, shake us up.
I remember one time Elijah Muhammad was giving a speech and he said, he was talking to white folks. He said, you need to let my people come with me. He said, you know I can do more with them than you can. Mm-hmm. I said, there it is right there, man.
Yeah.
There it is right there. But the language, you know, Imam Muhammad came in with language. He said we live in a language environment. Mm-hmm. Everything's about language. Mm-hmm. And he said right now we live in an environment with the language of death. Mm. So we got to have the language of life. And I never forget, Elijah Muhammad said one time, he said, we shouldn't listen to the blues. We don't have nothing to be sorry about. Mm-hmm. You know, so I stopped listening to the blues. Because the blues was really sad.
Yeah, yeah.
It was always sad.
Sad, yeah. I lost my baby tonight. She did me wrong, and now I don't feel right, you know, whatever it was, man.
So the other thing is that we're accused of coming from the Nation of Islam, going into the Arab religion. Mm-hmm. You know, and I have to say, if you really study the trajectory that Imam Muhammad put us on, it doesn't take us into the Arab religion. Mm-hmm. It revitalizes, it rejuvenates what they call the Arab religion. Because Islam is not an Arab religion. It's a universal religion.
Right.
And he goes in and cleans up the Arab thing, you know, because they slipped all the way back into chauvinism, racism, elitism, egoism, all of that stuff, you know, and worshiping their scholars and things like that. He went in there and cleaned that up, you know, and you get a lot of throwback from our own people because they done went from worshiping Jesus, the white man's God, to worshiping the high yellow Arab now. Mm. All they do was switch it around. But they've never grown up to see that this is a religion that gives you dignity. Mm-hmm. You know, and the Quran says you don't worship man.
Yeah, well, what did the Prophet say in his last sermon?
There's no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab. Mm-hmm. There's no superiority of a white over a black. There's no superiority of a black over a white. You know,
there it is.
You know,
there it is, and that was his last sermon. That wasn't necessarily no hadith. That was his last sermon.
Yeah, but you know, habits die hard.
That's true.
Habits die hard, and you really. That's why you know it's important to keep studying, keep your conscious mind active. Mm-hmm. So even though you have a bad habit, you know, okay, this is a habit I got to check, rather than accepting that habit as being what it is. Mm-hmm. And so we've been trained to be slaves of other people. We've been trained to worship other people. So becoming a Muslim, yeah, I want to be a Muslim, but I'm still not respecting myself with my own self-dignity. Mm-hmm. You know, now I'm going to do what all the Arabs do, because that's what they do. And this is a big problem that we have. This is a real big problem that we have. And you have to almost say, I would almost say you really have to be blessed to be protected from that. Because I talk to people nowadays and they just ask them questions and they just quote what the Arabs told them. They just quote it. They don't think, I say, but that don't make no sense, you know. Then they're going to tell you who said it and what day they said it, you know, and all this kind of stuff. I say, but it doesn't make any common sense, does it? Then they want to argue with you. You stand there and it's almost like something inside is I don't want to accept reality. I just want to keep being somebody else's fool. So Imam Muhammad introduced, he talked about language environment. He said, now we as Christians, former Christians, what is a Christian country? Everything around us is basically Christian.
Mm-hmm.
We've been taught the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
That's true. That's true.
That's kind of like, that's standard. We know what that means. That's a Christian mantra.
Mm-hmm.
He said, now we come into Islam and we say, in the name of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but we've been used to saying in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
And then when you study psychology, you know that when we're talking about habits die hard to die,
Mm-hmm.
your mind will click a tape on. And now you're Muslim, and you saying in the name of, your mind automatically clicks on that tape in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Right. Right.
So he said he stopped using in the name of Allah. He said, let's say with the name of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's no tape to click on to fog your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got new information coming in here now. So we're gonna make a new tape. So because if you say in Arabic, if you say Bismillah, you know, the Bismi is a preposition.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the preposition in English? On, after, by, in, from, above, all that kind of stuff.
With,
So,
right.
yeah, with. So you can use any of those.
Mm-hmm.
So what he did was not incorrect. Grammatically is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But he brought that to us to keep us from falling backwards. So with the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful.
Mm-hmm.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is the language of W.D. Muhammad, see.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that he introduced to us is the term al-Islam,
Right.
to refer to the name of the religion
Mm-hmm.
instead of just Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing about following Arabs. You have people that were raised up in Islam, and it's right there in the Quran in Arabic. This day have I perfected for you your religion and chosen for you al-Islam as your way of life. I mean, it says that
In the Arabic.
in Arabic,
Mhm.
al-Islam. So how in the hell all these years people keep saying Islam?
Mm-hmm.
And he mentioned one time when he was overseas, one of the quote unquote big boys,
Mm-hmm.
the ulama,
Mm-hmm.
said, they was laughing at him.
Mm-hmm.
Said, Imam Muhammad, he has his own religion, al-Islam.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
They made a joke out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then he showed it to him. What does that say? You know?
It says al-Islam in the Quran.
Yeah, they asked him, what's that say?
Oh, Brother Imam, we're sorry, we didn't mean nothing.
Yeah. That racism, man.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the brother we had on the show, the colonel from Fort
Yes,
Lewis, the
yes.
chaplain?
Khalid Shabazz.
Khalid Shabazz. You know, he told us a story similar to that when he was over in Iraq
Mm-hmm.
with the general, and they were walking through the villages,
Right.
and he told the imam there, he said, this is our chaplain,
Mm-hmm.
our Muslim chaplain. Because you know the brother got Star and Crescent on his collars and
Right,
everything.
right.
He said the brother didn't speak no English.
Mhm.
They went through an interpreter. He told the interpreter he ain't no chaplain,
Mm.
almost saying he ain't no Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
And then the general was saying, well, you know, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. And he said he wasn't no real chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you know, I ain't gonna listen to what he got to say,
Right.
because he's just another
Negro. We'll just leave it there.
man. So he said, so how he handled it was, he started quoting Quran,
Mm-hmm.
because you know he could read and write Arabic,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and they sent him to school. The military sent him to school to
Exactly.
learn Quranic Arabic,
Mhm.
how to read it, how to write it, how to say it, how to speak it. So he started quoting Quran. He said the brother looked at him and started crying.
Mm.
Went over and hugged him and started apologizing. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know, it's kind of like that's not what I was told.
Yeah. I was programmed something else.
Yeah.
You all don't know nothing.
Y'all don't know nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
So these are just little things,
Mm-hmm.
little insignificant, incidental things like with the name of Allah instead of in the name of Allah. Uh, uh, the thing about it that gets me though is this Arabic is right there in front of your face, but people have been learning Arabic and using the definition they've been given to use.
Mm.
Rather than doing some independent study.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gets me. How can you be an Arab, a natural born Arab, speaking Arabic when everybody in your family speak Arabic, then you study Quran and you become a leader in Islam, and you don't see that does not say Islam, it says Al-Islam.
Mm-hmm.
How can you overlook that? Why do you overlook that? Then somebody comes to you, reminds you of what it really says, and you want to condemn them. No, it don't say that. I don't see that. That's what gets me.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing. Let's kind of move to a different subject. We have about, maybe 6-7 minutes. I'll say about 6 minutes or so. So we're talking about how some of the people were acting, some of the kids were acting, you were telling me about.
Well, as a person that is new to Islam,
Mm-hmm.
my family wasn't Muslim. My grandparents weren't Muslim. I didn't raise up with a Muslim background. So I'm a new Muslim, in a sense. And so people come from overseas, from Muslim countries. They come from overseas, and I see their children out in the street acting worse than we do.
Mm.
And that's like, hey, what's going on here? And what I mean by acting worse than we do, I mean their boys are in the streets sagging, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, trying to cuss, talking about I gotta get this money, dude. Trying to play this gangster role.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to some of them. Because I know what they know and what they think they know. They think they know what's going on out here in these streets. But I also know that they know Islam too.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that. So I can talk to them. And I be having them crying. Yeah, brother, you right. You right, brother. I see him, and I don't approach him head up because I don't want him to reject me.
Right.
I asked them a question. I say, do you know where I can find the masjid?
Mm.
And they start, blah, 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 And I say, are y'all Muslim? Yeah, brother. And then I just look at them. And they start feeling so ashamed. Yeah, brother, we got to change, brother. Yeah, I know, brother. Yeah, I know, brother. And I gave one, I didn't give him his shahada. I made him say the shahada. We said it together, He started crying, man.
Mm.
And so my question is, how did they come from a Muslim environment, come over here to a non-Muslim environment, but yet have Muslim parents, and get so deeply engrossed in this ignorance? That's what they want. They're trying to be black. They're already black. What they trying to be?
Mm-hmm.
Follow our ignorance we caught up in. That stupid stuff. And that's what it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
They come from Africa to come over here and sag. And I tell them that. I just literally tell them that. I say, man, you come over here, we look up to you. We want to see your example of Islam. And here you are looking up to the worst of us and wanting to follow that. One brother said, man, I never looked at it like that, So I'm just putting that out there because there's a problem. There's a problem. We as African Americans, we have our own problems.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We come from a history of being bombarded in this country with just ignorance. We were forced to do the things that we had to. We were forced to be Christian. We came over here, we was Muslim. We were forced to be Christians, you know. They changed our names. They went in and out of our women like they wanted to. That's why you have brothers in the same family. One is coal black and the other one is half dead white. You know, coming from that incest and rape that was put on us. And we was forced to believe that we was cursed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of us are damaged, man, beyond repair. And here you come from a Muslim country where the people are making adhan 5 times a day. And the hell you come over here and want to act like us? That's, man, a real puzzle for me. And I was talking to one brother about it, and he said, well, you know, it's the culture. I said, but what about the home? Of course the culture is going to affect you, but you come out of the house knowing what's right. See? So the culture might get some of you, but I'm seeing too many of y'all out here, man.
That's something. That is something.
So I wanted to bring that up in doing this show.
Well, that's a lot. There's a lot of work to be done. You know, a lot of work to be done. You know, and as Elijah Muhammad used to say, we've got to work on self first.
Right.
Yeah, definitely on first. Yeah. All right. Any closing remarks? We got about a minute.
Well, I would advise people that if you're serious about studying this religion, don't overlook Imam Deen Mohammed.
Wise words, yeah.
What about you?
I would say the same thing. I would say go on YouTube and look at some of his speeches, Google him and learn about his language, because if not, you know, we'll just, one of the things he said, that when people talk to you a lot of times, they're either trying to free you or make you a slave.
Right.
That's something he said. They're either trying to free you or make you a slave.
Right.
So these are things that we have to look out for. Well, with that, Brother Benjamin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to our audience for watching. And we wish you peace and prayers.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.